Hello and welcome along, my name is Azzavhar or Azza, and in this video we're going to take a look at 10 awesome single player horror games on PC. Make sure to watch to the end because I might throw in a cheeky bonus game for you. These top 10 videos do take a lot of time and effort to create, so what would be really cool is if you do give this video a like. That's what will send the video out into the YouTube universe, ultimately allowing me to continue to content create and to content create more often. Thank you.
Full circus, baby. We aren't here to play hide and seek. Let's encourage baby to come out of hiding with a controlled shock.
Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location is a point-and-click survival horror game, and it's the 5th installment of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. You play as a technician that's hired to repair the animatronics and keep the place in check. You'll need to crawl through air vents and dark rooms to make your way to various different objectives. The average time to complete this game is about 3 hours. If you are a fan of horror games and you've not played Sister Location, I highly recommend checking it out. It's worth checking out the other Five Nights at Freddy's games as well, but my personal favourite is Sister Location. A short and fun game guaranteed to give you a jump scare. Emily Wants to Play is a survival horror jump scare game where you play as a pizza delivery man that steps inside the house that is delivering to avoid the rain. You then find yourself caught up in the games that Emily wants to play. You have to play the games of various different dolls and figure out what their game's mechanics are in order to survive. As the hours pass throughout the night, you'll have to play against various different dolls and sometimes multiple dolls at the same time. If you can survive long enough, you may find that Emily comes out to play as well. You'll have to think on your feet and expect some jump scares. This game will take about 2 hours to complete. There's also a second game in this series called Emily Wants to Play 2. Little Nightmares is an atmospheric horror adventure game with a dark tone to it. The game is set in a place called the Moor, which is a vast, mysterious vessel inhabited by corrupted souls looking for their next meal. You play as a little girl named Six, dressed in a yellow raincoat. Armed only with a lighter, you have to sneak, run, jump, and puzzle solve your way through the game, all whilst avoiding the inhabitants of the Moor. There's a fair bit of puzzle solving, so you'll have to use your wits to figure out how to progress. Your job is to help Six escape this place. The nightmares showed in this game are supposed to be similar to that of your childhood fears. This game does a really good job of combining horror, adventure, and puzzle solving all into one. On average, it takes about 3.5 hours to complete. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is a first-person immersive survival horror game that will chill you to the core. You play as a man that awakens within a castle with no memory of himself or his past. You'll have to avoid various different environmental dangers as well as monsters, and you'll also need to puzzle solve and fix things such as doors and machinery to progress. This game has a health and a sanity meter. You'll need to keep areas well lit in order to keep your sanity. You'll also need to run and hide from monsters. Some puzzles are quite tricky, so you're going to have to get your thinking cap on. This game should take about 8 hours on average to complete. There's also a second Amnesia game called A Machine for Pigs, which usually takes about 4 hours to complete, and there's a brand new Amnesia game being released on the 20th of October 2020 called Amnesia Rebirth. SOMA is an atmospheric horror game with a rich story created by the developers of Amnesia. You play as a guy called Simon who is the survivor of a car crash incident, however he's left with permanent brain damage. Because of this, he agrees to an experimental treatment involving a brain scan. Upon receiving this brain scan, you find yourself waking up in a mysterious location underneath the Atlantic Ocean. You'll need to uncover exactly where you are and how you got there, all whilst avoiding some machinery that seems to think that it's human. There's no fighting back in this game. You'll either have to outsmart your enemies or run for your life. One of the biggest selling points about SOMA is unraveling its deep story as you progress through the game. On average, this game should take about 9 hours to complete. The Evil Within is a dark, psychological horror game where you play as police detective Sebastian Castellanos. You're given a task to investigate the scene of a gruesome mass murder at Beacon Mental Hospital. Once you're there, you find yourself suddenly thrown into a strange world. The way the game plays is very similar to Resident Evil 4. You're given a bunch of different weapons and a very limited supply of ammo in order to fight your way through enemies. As you play through the game, you'll uncover the mysteries of Beacon Mental Hospital. A really fun game. This game should take about 16 hours to complete. If you enjoy this game, you could also pick up the second one in this series, The Evil Within 2.
Little pig.
Outlast is a first-person survival horror game where you play as a journalist trying to uncover the secrets of Mount Massive Asylum. In this game, you're not able to fight, you have to run or hide. You'll need to keep your eyes open for places to hide, such as under the bed or in the lockers. In some places, the game will be very dark and you'll not be able to see anything at all, in which case you'll need to use your camera with its night vision lens. This camera and its night vision will only add to the element of horror, as sometimes you'll look out to only see a pair of eyes looking back at you. There'll be lots of jump scares and you'll be running away from asylum patients in the dark. This game also has some DLC called The Whistleblower. It's got a second game in the series, Outlast 2, and there's a new game in the series being announced called The Outlast Trials. On average, this game should take about 5 hours to complete. Dead Space is a sci-fi and space-themed third-person survival horror game where you play as an engineer called Isaac. You're given a task to repair a ship called the Ishimura, which is a planet cracker ship designed for harvesting resources from planets. As soon as you arrive, you know instantly something is very wrong. You'll need to dismember the enemy limbs to do maximum damage. You'll need to use stasis to slow down your enemies to give yourself the upper hand in combat. Lots of spooks and a dark atmosphere with good combat and a hint of stomping on your enemies. On average, this game should take about 11 hours to complete, and there's also Dead Space 2 and 3 out as well.
Wake up. Alice?
Alan Wake is a third-person horror action-adventure game with a very deep story. You start as a best-selling author called Alan Wake, who's on a vacation with his wife in Bright Falls. A dark presence starts to show itself in the town, and your wife goes missing, pushing Wake to the brink of sanity. The combat is you essentially pointing your flashlight at an enemy and then shooting them. You also get other weapons like a flare gun, which allows you to take out multiple enemies with one shot. This game is very atmospheric and graphically it's very impressive. If you enjoy this game, there's also a second one in the series called Alan Wake's American Nightmare. On average, this game should take about 11 hours to complete. This game is developed by Remedy Entertainment, who are also the developers of Control.
No peeking. Hi, Mama.
Just before we get to the last game on this list, I've got an extra one to throw in for you as a cheeky bonus. This game is called Tattletail. Tattletail is a jump scare horror game set at Christmas 1998, where you'll have to survive against killer Furbies. You'll need to feed and groom your Furby in order to keep Mama Furby away. You can expect to be on the edge of your seat and also expect lots of jump scares. If you enjoy this game, it's also got some DLC as well. It's quite a short game. On average, it should take about 1 hour to complete. Alien Isolation is a sci-fi survival horror game where you play as Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Ellen Ripley. You're on a mission to uncover the truth behind your mother's disappearance. This game places an emphasis on stealth and survival as opposed to combat, as you'll have to hide from and outsmart your enemy. You'll find yourself having to improvise to survive, such as throw in flares to distract the xenomorph as you sneak away. This is also quite a large game. On average, it takes about 18.5 hours to complete. Let me know in the comments section below if you do try out any of these games. Let me know if you've got a favourite out of the games listed here.